Hello and welcome to Conversations for Good. I'm John Olajide. I'm the founder and CEO of Axxess, a Dallas-based company that's a leader in home healthcare technology. Last year, as the 2020 chair for the Dallas Regional Chamber, one of my priorities was to highlight how business can be a force for good. That's something that's always been incredibly important to me and something about which I am deeply passionate. So Conversations for Good brings together business leaders, community leaders, and entrepreneurs who embody what it means to use business as a force for good. Today I am pleased to welcome an excellent example of that, Steve Demetriou, Chair and CEO at Jacobs, a leading global professional services provider focused on sustainable infrastructure and development in communities around the world. Steve has devoted his 30-year career to building successful teams, working with unity and a common purpose. Steve believes in the importance of acting with integrity in all that he does. I know that, especially with a focus on an inclusive culture of caring for the well-being of all people. A lifelong love of basketball has taught Steve how great teams win. And it's these lessons he has carried throughout his career, and we'll hear all about that today. Steve led the relocation of Jacobs' corporate headquarters from Pasadena, California to Dallas in 2013 and has overseen an overhaul of Jacobs' long-term strategy. Steve works alongside 52,000 Jacobs colleagues to deliver a vision of a more connected and sustainable world. I've been privileged, very privileged, to work alongside him in our community, and I've been inspired by his dedication to serving others. Steve is a force for good. Jacobs is a force for good. So Steve, welcome and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, John. I really appreciate those comments. It's great to be with you. I'm actually excited to be part of this, and on behalf of all of Jacobs employees, we're really proud to hear those opening comments.
So let's get right to it. So Steve, tell us about yourself so that our audience knows who I have the privilege of having this conversation with. Tell us your story and maybe even details that you've never shared before. We want to hear it all.
Well, look, in summary, I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts, son of immigrant parents. My father and mother came over from Greece. My father at 16 years old came over, became a U.S. citizen, and eventually did what a lot of Greeks do, opened up a Greek restaurant. And I say that because I learned most of my leadership skills and style from my father, who didn't graduate high school. And what I learned was really all about culture and the engagement of people and inspiring people and working hard and integrity, et cetera. That's a lot of the things that you talked about. I graduated Tufts University, chemical engineer, worked the first 17 years of my career at Exxon, moving all over the world, and then eventually became CEO 20 years ago of a company that was a LBO leverage buyout of BF Goodrich's chemical business. And it was a big success. We ended up taking it public, and during the public offering, Lubrizol bought it, and it was great for the shareholders. And for the next 11 years, I then became CEO of Alaris, which is a global aluminum company. And so my career through until 6 years ago was really around oil and gas, chemicals, mining, and suddenly I got a call about the chief executive officer role of Jacobs, which was headquartered in Pasadena, California. It was a 70-year-old company, one of the great engineering companies, but a bit sleepy. Really just take care of today, and tomorrow will take care of itself. That was the philosophy of the company. And when I got there, I realized it was a tremendous opportunity to reshape the culture and unleash this company. And the first thing we did was we did move the headquarters to Dallas. Part of it was symbolic as part of a change, but also we're Dallas, dynamic city, great opportunities, more centralized in the U.S., global airport, et cetera. And we've been on a journey the last 6 years to transform the company, and I'll talk about that today. Personally, I'm married with 6 children. They're all adult, working and developing their career. Second grandchild is on the way. And then from a other personal standpoint, it's all about sports. And I love golf. Not very good, but basketball has been a passion of mine my entire career, my entire life. I peaked in high school as a player. I was elected to the Hall of Fame of my high school, but I didn't play college basketball. So I turned into a big fan. I lived in Cleveland during the whole LeBron James, greatness, and that was showtime and great for the family. And now I'm living the dream by being a owner of NBA minor league team, and I own the Lakeland Magic, which are associated with the Orlando Magic.
Okay, Steve, what an awesome introduction. I'm glad you shared that with our audience, and congratulations again on the grandkids. I know we were chatting about that earlier, and I know that's got you really excited. So congratulations, and thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing all of that with us. In your comments, you mentioned the importance of a connective culture in the workplace. So how would you define that for someone who might not be familiar with that term, connective culture? What are you talking about? What does that mean?
There's words that come to mind when we talk about connective culture. It's engagement and it's inspiration. That we want to have a culture where every day employees are coming to work inspired by what they do at Jacobs, and they feel engaged and how they contribute to the greater purpose of the company. And in our case, there is an important purpose, and that we just don't do infrastructure engineering. We provide solutions to make our world better, safer, healthier, and especially in this environment where we're working on climate change and the need to address some major issues and opportunities. So really, that's what we mean by a connective culture.
Got it. Okay. So we know, you and I know, we're big culture people. We know for any business, culture is essential. But we also know that it goes beyond the basic of policies and procedures. I know that at Jacobs, your culture is designed to make your people and communities feel safer, as you've talked about, healthier and better for all. So can you describe some of the most effective actions that you've taken to make this a reality and the impact this has had on your employees and the community?
Yeah, some things that I'd like to talk about there, John, is first of all, one of the first things is to let them know that it's a top priority, and it's the first things that they hear coming out of my mouth and leaders as we talk about where we want to go as a company. It all starts with culture and people and how do we make sure that they're engaged and inspired. And so the things that we've been doing along the way are, I think one of the very important steps was really elevate. Every company has employee networks, but we've really created a powerful employee network across this company, which helps employees connect with like-minded people. But those employee networks are sponsored by senior executives. So I sponsor the women's network as well as the Harambe network, which is our Black network. And then we have other networks around our disabled employees, around our Hispanic employees, LGBTQ, and on and on. We have about 30,000 of our employees out of 55,000 that are engaged in these networks. And so these networks have become a powerful force of feeding us information that we need to know as senior leaders and engaging them and helping us develop the right culture. I'd say the second big thing, John, was our work last year to develop a brand for the company, a new brand. And that brand has really brought to life what we do at Jacobs. And that brand has values. We have 4 core values in this company around we do things right, we challenge the accepted, we live inclusion, and we aim higher. But one of the things, everybody has corporate values, but what we did to really make sure that people saw action around those is we created what we call hero brands. And for example, Beyond Safety is our hero brand around we do things right around safety. We have Together Beyond, which is our hero brand for inclusion and diversity, and has a structure around it to really drive that core value. And those are some examples around that.
Wow. That's incredible. It's funny, I'm listening to you and trying to take notes at the same time, because that's powerful information. And I know there are other business leaders that are learning and listening and they want to learn from you. So I want to talk about culture just a little more. You're known for transforming your company's culture and reassuring your employees that we're all in this together. So Steve, what do you think is the secret really to cultivating a strong company culture? So for all the leaders that want to know how to do this, what's the secret sauce? What have you gotten right that you can share with them?
Well, for me, it's crystal clear, and it's advice that I would give any leader. It's the tone at the top. It has to be, the leader isn't an I&D leader. It's not a HR leader. The leader needs to be the CEO of the company, and own it, and walk the talk, and hold the organization accountable for driving it. And accountability in a positive way, right? Who doesn't want to be inspired? Who doesn't want to be included?
Yep.
And who doesn't want to do the right things? So it really creates an expectation across the company. And I think that's the secret sauce. I mean, we could go into all other kind of processes and things that we've done, but if it starts at the top and that accountability it cascades down through the company, and the leadership emulates what is starting at the top of the company, then it's going to be highly successful.
Steve, one of the things that I enjoy the most about talking to you is you keep it simple. You said it starts at the top, that's a secret sauce, and walk the walk, do what you say you're going to do, and that's powerful. So you have a way of simplifying things that you may not realize. It's quite a gift, actually, because every time I talk to you, that's what I think about. So let's talk about the coronavirus pandemic. It's important that we cover that. And we know that the onset of the coronavirus pandemic forced all of us to adopt new protocols and procedures for nearly everything that we do as organizations and even business leaders. So which of these things that you've had to do you plan to keep doing, and what are some things that you are not going to do anymore beyond the pandemic?
Yeah. John, I think this is going to be one of the most important responsibilities that we as CEOs have over the next 12 to 18 months. As hopefully this pandemic starts to go away, and may never fully go away, but we start to get back to some sense of normalcy. I think this is probably the most important question that we're all facing, and that is, we believe at Jacobs that we want to maintain the acceleration that we've all gone through in becoming a more digital company, and we can't let that foot off the pedal. Let's not be tempted to go back to the old ways. And so how do we keep that going? Well, we need to keep what we're doing right here, the virtual connectivity, use these tools, enhance them, learn how to use them better. We want to keep the global connection that we've done because we cared about our employees during this pandemic. So the global town halls that we've all been doing, we were all doing town halls. I was doing town halls my first 5 years in the company, but it was getting on a plane, going and do one with 100 people or 50 people or 200. Now we're doing them with 30,000 employees or 20,000 or sometimes the entire population. What we want to not do is avoid going back to the old culture of let's get on a plane and go do our business. Jacobs was, because we're 400 offices, global company, the natural instinct was always just get on a plane. And all of us tended to, 80% of our life was traveling on airplanes. I think now, if we're going to get on a plane, it's a conscious decision. It's clearly the best, and we will still travel, but we have to be tempted to avoid the temptation of doing it the old way. And the other is going to be the whole office structure. How do we transform? And we've already launched this. We've already reduced 40% of our footprint, not to save cost, but to really accelerate this digital transformation of recognizing offices are going to be a place where we collaborate, where we train, we celebrate, we meet clients. But when we do our normal day-to-day job, we can clearly do that remotely from home. And so it's going to be a hybrid for Jacobs moving forward. And it's going to be one of the most important leadership roles that I know I'm going to play as a CEO, to make sure that we avoid the temptation of going back to the old way.
Wow, that's powerful. And what I hear you say is just lean into this change and accept this as the new normal. This is how you're going to do this going forward, and not go back to the old ways. Wow.
Exactly.
Powerful. Well, if you're enjoying this conversation, please like and share the video, and join us in this conversation on how business can be a force for good. I have the pleasure of spending time with Steve Demetriou, the the chair and CEO of Jacobs, and this is an incredible conversation. So, Steve, I want to take you back a little bit. You talked about connective culture earlier. So I want us to talk about connective culture in a COVID world. So how did this connective culture that you described earlier impact the changes that you've made at Jacobs? And what did you do to make sure that your team felt heard and protected in a socially distanced world when there's just a lot of vulnerability globally? So what did you do to bring your team along?
Yeah, I think the whole discussion that we started with today around the importance of culture and how that's the first priority of Jacobs in anything that we do helped us be successful during this COVID situation. And I say that because, as we all know, it was a matter of days where we had to all figure out how to get out of the offices, get home, and for us with 55,000 employees and globally, that was no easy task. And I would say what our culture gave us was resiliency. It really, provided us that ability to be flexible. The fact that we had diverse leadership making quick decisions helped us make better, faster decisions versus maybe the leadership team we would have had 5 or 6 years ago that lacked that, inclusivity, diverse mindset, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And then as we got into the whole, COVID environment, it did become a culture of caring. And that was the top priority. How do we stay highly connected to our employees? And that's where I was doing weekly town halls to help provide. And by the way, I was making mistakes on those town halls. I was giving them comfort that this pandemic would end soon. Things that I had no clue, but I was trying to think of ways to calm our global workforce. And then as reality set in, the messages changed, and it became how do we, be in this for the longer term and get through this successfully. We did surveys along the way to make sure we were understanding what was going right, where we were still lacking. We just recently did a massive culture survey. Really learned a lot of good things that reinforced a lot of the compliments that you've given today, John, but we also got some wake-up calls on things that we're still not doing right as a company. And so for us, I would say what COVID has helped us with is learn how to get more connected, engaged, and listen to our employees.
Wow. Steve, as you were speaking, I was just reflecting on my leadership. I didn't do weekly town halls. I did a lot of communication. I did monthly town halls, but I just, as you spoke, I realized I could have done more. I could have been more available, even on a weekly basis for town halls. So that's an important takeaway for me from this conversation. That's something I can still do. So thanks for sharing that. And I'm sure all the leaders feel the same way as well. In my earlier comments before we started this, I shared with you that I believe, and I want everyone to know, that I believe Steve Demetriou is in a league of his own in just how you've leaned in, especially in the past year, given all the uncertainty in the world, just leading on issues that a lot of leaders may not even be as comfortable speaking about. So let's talk about justice and equality issues. Steve, you and I agree that we all have a responsibility to address the need of equity for all. You're very out front about that. You're leading on that. And Jacobs has taken its own steps to support all employees, as you shared with us. So can you provide insight into this Jacobs, I read about this global action plan for advancing justice and equality, and how the plan enhances current initiatives around diversity, equity, and inclusion? Unpack all that for us.
So a couple of leading comments to that before I give a few specifics about that plan is I mentioned to you almost 6 years ago, we launched into this initiative of it's all about culture. And let me first start and say why that's important is when I think of all of us as leaders, we have competitors, and we all like to think we've got the best people. We like to think that we got the best strategies, the best assets, technology, but in many cases, the talent is in all companies, and everyone has great things. What's going to differentiate is how do you engage and unleash all of that in a way that gets the maximum output. And the way you do that is to have a great culture. It's very simple. People are happy, inspired, they're going to work better. If they're frustrated, you're going to get less from them and probably not going to retain as many of the employees as you want. So it's almost so simple, but yet we spend all of our time doing other things. So for us, what we quickly got after gender diversity. We got after full diversity, which is not only gender, ethnicity, it's age diversity, international diversity. And so before all these big moments in time hit, the Me Too movement, the Black Lives Matter, George Floyd atrocities, then you get all of these, BlackRock and the Business Roundtable coming out with the greater purposes of companies.
Yeah.
We got out ahead of all that, John, and felt like, we were actually writing a lot of that script. Now, when that, the whole Black Lives Matter happened and we all were recognizing we have to do more, I think this action plan that we put together, social justice and equality, was really to document this and hold ourselves even more accountable and put it out there internally and externally. And this action plan we published to our global organization. We put it out on social media. We reviewed it with the board of directors and said we were going to hold each other, including the board, accountable for it. And it had three elements to it. The first was around how we're going to take a step back and train our employees, all 55,000 on them, of what we mean. And so, a lot of companies are doing unconscious bias training. We elevated that to conscious inclusion, bystander. Why do we have people standing by and seeing these, these inequalities and not raising their hand and doing things? How do we train, our Black executives, Black leaders, Black high potential employees to accelerate, their careers, and what can we do to engage outside groups, et cetera? That was a big leg of this action plan. The second was to make commitments to get to a point where we had an employee base, a Black employee base that represented the community, and so we've got measurable goals that we're living up to. And by the way, this was a year ago we launched this, and we're out there making great improvement. And then the third is, what are we doing to contribute to the external society? And we committed $10 million to invest in STEAM activities around, especially inner city schools, and really help communities. We've deployed several $1 million already, and we're putting our money where our mouth is. We're all engaged externally. Each of us, our top 100 leaders in the company, are required to mentor 2 diverse employees, one of which are Black, and that mentor sponsorship is an ongoing sort of accountability, by the way, we all enjoy and are having a lot of fun with, but it's really changing the whole environment of our commitment. And to make sure that we have somebody to hold us all accountable, we did promote one of our high potential Black leaders to be the head of Together Beyond, which I talked about earlier. So it's not just about Black employees, it's Hispanic and the full diversity of Jacobs, to where we have somebody that wakes up every day that's looking at this action plan and engaging us on how we're doing, where we're falling short, and how to continue to stay on track.
Steve, what you just described is incredible. I just want you to know that. You probably do it every day, maybe even take that for granted, but I'm glad that you're sharing that with me and also our audience, so that all the leaders can learn about what's, as you spoke, I just had chills. Like, this is leadership in action, and I know you walk the walk, you talk the talk. Thank you for sharing that. And I think a lot of that is a natural segue into something that I'm incredibly passionate about, business being a force for good. And you talked about the comments from the Business Roundtable about the purpose of a corporation. So for more than 30 years, you've challenged how people view business, and you've captured a lot of that in your comments and what it can do for the greater community. So from your perspective, what would you say has been the most impactful change that you've seen over the last year, and what actions can other leaders take to continue being a force for good? Just maybe one takeaway for them.
Right. Well, look, the thing that I'm excited about is that I believe all leaders now get it, and they're going after it. Some are starting from, far behind. Others, like you and I believe, that have been committed to this and are inspired by this, are out there in front, and we're engaging with each other. We're doing. I mean, what you're doing, John, is amazing. I mean, it is that you're getting this conversation going, and we're learning from each other. And you and I have spent some time together, and I've learned so much from you. And these things rub off. But also, when I'm involved in World Economic Forum meetings or chamber or Dallas Citizens Council meetings or whatever it is, and I see things that aren't necessarily consistent with inclusion and diversity, I speak up. And I might even point out, wow, this room is lacking diversity. We need to think, if we're going to be a better association or agency or whatever we're doing, that we need to get more diversity in the room here, and so we can make better decisions. And so I would say that that's what I'm starting to see happen. The fact is, publicly traded companies today, if you're not committed to being an ESG company, and so that's not just climate change, but it's the S is social, and focused on the mental health of your employees and the well-being of your employees, and having a place where employees truly feel like they belong. And then the whole governance side, which is the G. Some of these major funds will not invest in you anymore, and so there's been a great force now by governance groups, shareholders, board of directors, that it's become now a requirement to be a sustainable company, to really fall into place like what we're talking about today, John.
Wow, thank you so much, Steve. I know you and I share the belief that leaders, one of our primary responsibilities is to create a safe space for our people to bring their whole selves to work. And thank you for sharing all your wisdom with us today. Thank you for just taking time to join us, and for all the work that you do to make the world a better place and a more equitable place. Thank you so much, Steve.
Yeah, John, thank you. And I look forward to seeing you in person soon.
Same here, same here. So if you enjoy this conversation, please like and share this video, and join us in the conversation on how business can be a force for good. Steve Demetriou joined us today. Excellent example of a person that's a force for good leading an organization that's a force for good as well. So thank you to those tuning in. I look forward to many more good conversations in the future. Thank you.